there is a huge difference between the intellectual questions we have that are born from cynicism and skepticism and the kinds of questions which are born out of doubt and confusion. They're very, very different. I don't know if you remember in the beginning of the Gospel of Luke, we have that whole series of angelic appearances. They're fantastic. Now, if you remember, Gabriel comes, first of all, to Zechariah. And he says, basically, Zechariah, I've got good news. You're going to have a boy. And Zechariah says, well, look, I'm pretty old. My wife is pretty old. How do I know this? And Gabriel looks at Zechariah and says, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have come here to tell you this, and you did not believe me. Therefore, from this time onwards, you will be struck dumb until these words are fulfilled in their correct time. And when he comes out of the temple, he cannot speak. It's not that he has nothing to say, rather he is unable to say it. Now, a little bit later, the same angel, Gabriel, goes to see Mary and says, Mary, don't be afraid. You're going to have a boy. Okay? It's good news. And Mary says, how can this be? Because I'm a virgin. And Gabriel says, well, the power of the Almighty will overcome you, and the power of the Spirit will overshadow you, and you will be with child, and he will be the Son of the Most High, and will be the Son of God. Now, I don't know if you've ever asked yourself the question, is that fair? In the sense that the gay angel comes to Gabriel and says, you're going to have a boy. And Zechariah says, well, I'm pretty old. My wife is pretty old. And Gabriel says, that's it. You're struck dumb. And then he goes to Mary and says, hey, you're going to have a baby. And she says, well, I haven't slept with anyone. So, how can this be? And he gives an explanation. Now, is that fair? I mean, what happened between those two instances? The answer is, I believe, if we look closely at this text, is that God is dealing with them differently. Although they appear to be very, very similar, there is something very, very different, because the difference between a question of complete skepticism and cynicism and a question that's born out of doubt and confusion, they are not the same. Now, the parallels are striking. Okay? The angel appears, they are both afraid. Which is why the angel says, do not be afraid. So neither of them sees the angel and goes, ooh, angels. Wow. I wonder if there are any unicorns about. Okay? They are both respond to this revelation of holiness with terror. They are both frightened. They both are given emotional reassurance. Do not be afraid. This is good news. Okay? They are both told they will have children. They will both have boys. And yet the responses are so different. Now, questions born out of cynicism and skepticism are never interested in an answer. How will I know this? How can I know this is true? Is different from a question, how will this be? How is this possible? Let me just try to explain what I mean. In the cynicism, anything that's related to the gospel, and we live in a very cynical culture today, will be written off as chance. Answered prayer, chance. Fulfilled prophecy, chance. As soon as we write things off as chance, we're basically making them meaningless. Now, our culture has become so cynical in our contemporary age that even language itself has been put down to a thing of chance, which makes even meaningful communication impossible. Everything becomes meaningless. Now, what is interesting, as I said, when you look at Zechariah, somehow he bodily outlives this fact that without God, language just simply even disappears. And as Zechariah here asks this question of complete skepticism, he finds he can't speak at all. Now, there is a clue, further clue, as a differentiation between what's happening here with Zechariah and Mary. And it happens if you read, obviously, from chapter 1, verse 9 of the Gospel of Luke very carefully, where when the angel appears to Zechariah, what he actually says is, Zechariah, I am Gabriel. He says, Zechariah, your prayer has been heard, and your wife, Elizabeth, will bear you a son. Now, this is amazing. This changes everything. Gabriel, when he comes to Zechariah, unlike Mary, who was not praying, by the way, for immaculate conception, Zechariah was praying for a child. We know this because Gabriel says, your prayer has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son. So forget about atheistical skepticism at the moment. This is theistic skepticism. Zechariah, a priest in the temple, has been praying and asking God for a son, or for a child. We don't know if it's a son. Maybe he was asking for a son. It wouldn't be unreasonable in this culture to assume it was, but a child. An angel comes to him and says, good news. Your prayer has been heard. God is going to deliver. You're going to have a boy. And Zechariah says, how will I know this? Seriously? You've been praying and asking God, give me. And this is, if you have wrestled with the issue of childlessness, these are the kinds of issues that cause tears, sleepless nights, on your knees begging God, please, Lord, help, answer our prayer. May we have a child. And now an angel comes. Your prayer is finally heard. And Zechariah's response is, how can I know this? Now, both Mary's objection or question and Zechariah's question are rooted actually scientifically. They both have biological objections to the angel's message, right? This is biology 101. Zechariah, I'm old, my wife is old, do the maths, babies, very remote chance. Now, Zechariah should have known better, because if he'd been reading his Old Testament, he would know that God actually has a history of delivering babies to, unlikely people, regardless of age. But, let's just leave that aside. Mary's objection is also scientifically grounded. I'm a virgin. I haven't known a man. To have a baby? But Zechariah's question is not a question that's going to permit an answer. And his skepticism in the face of this revelation invites judgment. Mary, however, is simply confused. She hasn't been praying. She hasn't been asking. The angel comes. She has a question of legitimate confusion. I don't understand how this is biologically possible. The necessary steps have not been fulfilled. And the angel says, let me explain to you how this will happen. Is it possible that some of us are here today and we're asking God for the nations? We're looking to him to do something, to move. And the simple truth is that even if Gabriel himself came and stood in front of us and said, your prayer has been heard, we would respond in exactly the same way. Is it possible that there are some of you in this room and God has been calling you? He's been calling you for a while. And you're busily praying away. It's a dangerous place to be.